4 young children shot near Angleton, 2 of them dying from their injuries, according to the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office. The person they believe did this?
Romelus, the mother of the children, is the shooter.
31-year-old Oninda Romelus.
This tragedy
in the early hour of
has
October
occurred
4th,
inside of a
2025,
vehicle.
when most of Brazoria County still slept beneath a pale Texas sky, a single call pierced the calm. A mother's name that would soon be whispered with disbelief and horror, Oninda Romelus. Authorities arrived to a scene that felt almost unreal. A quiet roadside. A parked vehicle. 4 small bodies inside, each bearing the scars of violence
Also
no child
tonight, a
should
mother
ever
is
know.
accused of shooting her 4 children, killing 2 of them. The Brazoria County Sheriff's Office says the children were found yesterday at a gas station in Angleton after they say the mother called them. ABC 13's Sarah Al-Sheikh is at the Sheriff's Office with the latest tonight.
2 of them, a 13-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl, were already gone. Their siblings, ages 8 and 9, were still alive, barely, their tiny frames fighting against the odds as paramedics worked frantically beside the flashing red and blue. But the real question that hung in the air, heavy, unrelenting, was why? What could drive a mother, described by neighbors as quiet and devoted, to allegedly turn a gun on her own children? Deputies later said that quick action saved at least 1 life, but even that small mercy couldn't erase the horror of what had happened inside that car. As dawn broke over the quiet streets of Angleton, Texas, a new kind of light spread, not the warmth of morning, but the cold glare of suspicion, of unanswered questions, and of a story that would soon captivate the nation. When deputies reached the scene, Oninda Romelus stood there, motionless, almost detached, as if the horror unfolding behind her was happening to someone else. Her hands trembled slightly, but her face, blank, cold. Was it shock? Or something far more chilling, a calm acceptance of what she had done? Investigators approached carefully. The air was thick with a metallic scent of blood and gunpowder, the sirens echoing like an unending wail. The first responders, hardened by years on the job, would later admit, this one shook them. Inside the car, they found the gun. It lay wedged between the seats, its surface smeared with fingerprints and the faint warmth of recent use. As officers led her away, Romelus didn't fight. She didn't cry. She didn't ask about her children. One deputy said quietly, she just stared ahead, like she was somewhere else. Detectives began piecing the fragments together, surveillance footage, 911 logs, neighbors' statements. One neighbor claimed to have heard muffled arguing just before the gunshots. Another said they saw her pacing outside the vehicle earlier that morning, muttering under her breath. But no one, not a single person, could explain the why. Was this a sudden mental break? A hidden rage no one had seen coming? Or something planned, a deliberate act of a mother whose world had quietly fallen apart? The sheriff called it one of the most disturbing crime scenes he'd ever witnessed. The local community called it evil. But the investigators, they just called it heartbreaking. And as word spread, Brazoria County began to ask the same haunting question. How could love turn into something this unrecognizable? Who was Oninda Romelus before that morning? A loving mother, friends said. Soft-spoken. The kind of woman who braided her daughter's hair before school and reminded her sons to pray before bed. But behind that quiet surface, something was unraveling, slowly, silently. Detectives began to dig. They combed through social media posts, old text messages, medical reports, searching for signs. And they found pieces of a woman on the edge, a few cryptic posts about feeling unseen, late-night searches about depression, and reports of growing tension at home. Neighbors recalled hearing her cry at night. One even mentioned seeing her sitting alone in the car just days before the tragedy, her head buried in her hands. What was happening in her mind? Was this despair building up over time, the kind that festers until it explodes? Or did something snap inside her, a moment of madness she could never take back? When investigators interviewed family members, they described her as overwhelmed, stressed, isolated. But even they couldn't comprehend how pain could twist so completely, how a mother's hands could turn against her own children. Some speculated it was a mental health crisis, untreated, unnoticed. Others whispered darker theories: jealousy, revenge, a final act of control. The questions kept multiplying, but the answers stayed buried beneath her silence. Romelus didn't speak, not to the detectives, not to the press, not even to her own family. She simply sat there in the county holding cell, her eyes blank, her voice gone. And so the world kept asking, what breaks a mother that deeply? And could anyone have seen it coming before it was too late? In the cold light of the emergency ward, two small bodies trembled beneath white sheets. Their voices were faint, their memories fractured, but their eyes, wide, terrified, held the truth no one wanted to hear. They had seen everything. The 8-year-old boy and 9-year-old girl were the only ones left breathing when deputies arrived. They weren't just victims, they were witnesses, living echoes of something unspeakable. When one regained consciousness, a nurse heard a whisper. "Is Mommy still angry?" Those 4 words froze the room. Because they weren't just words, they were evidence. Fear, trauma, confusion tangled with love. Detectives hovered outside their hospital door, waiting, knowing those children might hold the key to the entire mystery. But could they speak? Would they? Meanwhile, in the county cell, Oninda Romelus said nothing. Not a word about her children. Not a word about that night. Only silence, the kind that tightens your chest and dares you to look deeper. The investigators began to see it differently now. This wasn't just a crime, it was a message written in pain. But what was she trying to say? The answers, they believed, were coming, and the courtroom would be where her silence finally met the truth. The courtroom was a storm held in silence. Every eye fixed on Oninda Romelus, the woman accused of doing what no mother should. She sat still, pale, her hands clasped like she was praying to something that had already abandoned her. When the prosecutor spoke, the words sliced through the air. She pulled the trigger 4 times. 2 lived. 2 died. All were her children. The jurors shifted, the audience stiffened. Photos flashed across the screen. Small faces, lifeless eyes, blood-stained seats. And still, Romelus didn't move. Was this guilt? Or was there nothing left inside her to feel? Her defense tried to explain the unexplainable. They spoke of mental collapse, untreated pain, a mother lost in her own darkness. One psychiatrist whispered, "She didn't hate them. She broke." But could a broken mind justify the destruction it caused? Could love really twist into something that horrific? Every testimony deepened the tension. Every pause felt like the moment before a scream. The jurors weren't just weighing evidence. They were staring into the abyss of what a human mind could become. And when the verdict came, it didn't bring peace. Just a hollow silence, the kind that follows after a scream dies out. Because no sentence could undo what she'd done. 2 children gone. 2 left behind. And a nation still asking, was she a monster or a warning?